Hey, my name is Florencia Andrés, and thank you, IDC, for inviting me to talk about the power of having a big dream. And today we're not going to talk just about wishful thinking, but about real mindset strategies that actually work. Because if we are real, when speaking about entrepreneurship or business, having a clear, compelling dream is not something optional, it's foundational. Every breakthrough, every world-changing innovation, every company that changed the industry started the same way, with a dream. Now, this will not be your typical business talk. This will be an experience that you and me will create together. And in order to do that, I will start by asking you 3 questions. Now, this will be easy because the answers will be on screen. So we're just getting warmed up, okay? And question number 1 is, where are you? Okay, that was officially the shyest answer I've ever gotten in 20 years being on stage. Let me try one more time. Let's try and infuse some Miami energy into the answer. Where are you? Okay, that's much better. What time is it? Wow. Who are you? This moment. You see, oftentimes we're sitting here and our body is here, but our mind is somewhere else. And we're usually in the past thinking, did I forget to call that client? Or we're in the future thinking, I wonder what we're going to have for lunch today. And in that way, we miss the only thing we have, which is this moment and this time that we will create together. And I want to start today by sharing the story of a little boy with a big dream. This kid dreamed about playing football ever since he was 2 or 3 years old. And one day, his parents looked at him and said, the kid is getting pretty good. Let's go take him to one of the big clubs for a tryout. So they take him there. And the guys who are deciding what kid they're going to sign and which one they're going to let go say, we like him. And then one of the guys says, I don't. Something's off with this kid. Let's go get him checked with the doctors. And so they take him to the doctors, and the doctors come back with pretty bad news. They say, yeah, the kid has a health problem, so you might want to let him go. And so the people said, yeah, we're not going to sign a contract with a kid who was born broken. And so the kid, had been born with a problem, and he was broken in his body, but certainly not in his mindset. And he said, you know what? Yeah, I might not have the same body conditions as the others, so what? I'll still pursue my dream. I'll still do whatever it takes to make this dream come true. Whatever it takes. And if that means that every single day of my life, I have to push a needle into my leg to see if my body will contribute and grow, that's what I'm going to do. Yes, I'm not as tall as the others, I'm not as strong as the others. I guess I will just have to learn how to play football in a different way. And this kid, who was nicknamed La Pulga in his home country, the flea because of how tiny he was, became the biggest player of all times. This is the true story of Lionel Messi, the guy who created history in football, the guy who won a World Cup at age 35 or 36 after 16 years of trying to achieve that goal, the guy who was named 8 times best player in the world in 3 different decades, which says a lot about him. When he was asked, hey, did you ever dream about this? You know what his answer was? I dreamt about this 1,000 times. And the reason I admire this guy so much is not because of how well he plays football, which is absolutely undeniable. And it's not because of the fact that we were both born in the same country, because I was born and raised in Argentina. I moved to Europe a few years ago, but still an Argentinian at heart. Do we have Argentinians in the room? A few? Yeah? Make some noise. The reason I admire him so much is because he could turn a problem into an opportunity. And he made his dream bigger than his limitations. And you might be wondering, okay, Florencia, cool story. I'm also a Messi fan. But why are we talking about sports? Aren't we supposed to be talking about business? Well, because sports and business have a lot more in common than what you might imagine. A lot more in common. And I happen to know both worlds pretty well. During many years, I was the mindset coach of some of the best athletes on the planet. I've had that enormous privilege. Many of those athletes, I'm sure you know. And that gave me a first-hand experience of what truly sets a champion apart. Beyond the talent, beyond the discipline, what sets champions apart is a winning mindset. And at the same time, my favorite sport in life has always been business. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and the same principles that I applied with the athletes, I applied to build my own business. And they helped me go from being completely unknown in a very small economy to becoming a best-selling author and to have the privilege of sharing the stage with some of the most influential people on the planet, and to building my own company that now serves professionals in over 50 countries. We help them build and launch their own online businesses. And what I know for sure is that all of us here, we entrepreneurs, founders, investors, we have a lot in common with those elite athletes. And here's the thing. The distance between an elite athlete and a trophy is the exact same distance between you and your next big goal. It's this distance. It's the distance between our ears. It's in our mindset. It's in our inner game. And today we will dive into 4 pillars of the inner game of business that make big, bold dreams happen faster and easier. These pillars, as you will soon realize, they're based on one rule: simplicity. And I'm a big fan of simplicity because I think complexity is the enemy of execution. And so my aim today is not to impress you with complex ideas, but to hand you simple tools that you can use right away and see results in your personal and professional life. Sounds good? All right, let's dive in. So pillar number 1 of the inner game of business is conviction. Because you can have the best idea in the world, you can have the most brilliant team, you can have cutting-edge technology and all the right data points, but if the entrepreneur leading that project does not have rock-solid conviction, he will not be the best leader for that team. Because in essence, leading is transferring your conviction to other people, transferring your conviction to your team, to your partners, to your investors, to the market. And now conviction is not a binary trait. It's not whether do you have it or not. Now, the question is, where is your level of conviction? Is it mild? Is it pretty strong? Well, when your level of conviction hits a 10 out of 10, you become magnetic. You become unstoppable. And you might be thinking, well, yeah, unstoppable? I can have all the conviction in the world, but what about external factors? What about the economy? What about the competitors? What about... I get it. External factors matter. And at the same time, when you have a 10 out of 10 conviction, all those external factors really diminish. Let me share a story from my own personal journey. More than 20 years ago, me and my mother had a dream, and our dream was to write a book that would inspire people to believe in themselves and to go for their big dreams. We worked on that book for many, many, many years. And finally, in the year 2010, a big publishing house got interested. And I remember feeling so excited. And I remember the day I went to sign the contract. And I remember, I was wearing my best outfit, and I was carrying my shiny pen, and I was thinking, today is the day that I make my dream come true. Well, I walked into my editor's office, and I'm feeling like $1 million. You know those days when you're like, this is it. And so I look at him, and I casually drop, so how many books are we going to release into the world? And he looks at me and goes, what world? We're only publishing 5,000 for the local market. And I go, no, what do you mean 5,000? No, our dream is to reach hundreds of thousands of people across the world. And he goes, well, young lady, how do I break the news to you? Let's see. This is a third world country. The market is tiny. People are not even reading books anymore. And you're a first-time author. Nobody knows you. Which means there is no budget for this launch. There is no money for advertising or publicity or even a launching event. And then he said, you'll have to go by word of mouth. And trust me, if you sell 5,000 books by word of mouth, consider yourself very lucky. And I remember standing there and feeling like my head was spinning. And feeling like, let me show you how I felt, to see if you've ever felt this way. So I'm standing there. Have you ever had this experience of presenting your dream, your goal, your project to someone, and this person goes, interesting. Have you ever had that? Well, this is how I felt. Or rather, and this is how I left the meeting, thinking, okay, no money for a launch, no publicity, not even a single launch event, and the one person who is supposed to believe in us doesn't. This is never going to happen. Okay, this is it. This is where it ends. So I go back home feeling pretty miserable, and I spend a few days feeling pretty miserable. And then at one point, I had a self-realization that completely changed my life. I realized it was not his job to believe in me. It was my job. It was not his job to be fully convinced of the scope of this project. It was my job. And when I understood it, well, I got busy. And I started doing everything you can possibly imagine in the pre-launch phase. Everything, even some pretty embarrassing things. At one point, I call my editor and I tell him, I have an idea. And he goes, let's see. It involves no money. Okay. I go, what if we call all the booksellers, the main booksellers in the city, and we invite them into an event, and so I share with them the mission of the book, and maybe they'll help us sell the books. And he goes, yeah, you know what? I don't think it's gonna make any difference, You're probably gonna invite them. They're not even gonna show up. And if they show up, they're gonna send a junior who has no decision-making power. And I go, well, can we give it a try? Sure. And so they lent us a very tiny room in the publishing house. And that's me in the year 2010, August 2010. And just as he had predicted, only 12 showed up, and they were all juniors. Well, one of them happened to work in the biggest book selling chain, however we call that. And he liked our energy. He went back, he told his boss. His boss invited us to give a talk for 150 of their sales force. Oh, we left it there. Well, the book was finally published. And 2 weeks after it was published, it hit number 2 on the national best-selling list. This is 2010, so we had Steve Jobs. Thank you. And guess who called that day? And guess what he said? Congratulations, ladies. And I remember receiving the call and being like, we're finally getting some acknowledgement here. This feels good. And then he says, this is what I call beginner's luck. The guy was hard to convince. Well, beginner's luck had a long-lasting effect because the book went on to sell 500,000 copies in the first year. It was translated into multiple languages. We were the first women in 40 years to receive the Golden Book Award. Because of the book, Sony Music got interested in us and signed us as their first ever non-musical artist to tour across Latin America talking about the book. And it all started with no launch budget, with no marketing plan, with no proof. The only thing we had was our conviction. And our conviction was strong enough to make up for all the things that we did not have. And this is not a story to belittle my editor. It looks like that, right? But it's not. I actually do see him as a great master because the moment he said, Florencia, there are no resources to back up your dream, that's when I had to tap into my resourcefulness. And that day, that moment, I was born as an entrepreneur. And I truly believe that out of all the resources that we may have, having a 10 out of 10 level of conviction is the greatest one of all. And you might be wondering, okay, fine, nice, but how do you do it? How do you build that level of conviction and how do you spread that onto your teams? Well, let's look at what research says. The MIT performed a study where they wanted to know what makes teams successful. And they studied all types of teams across industries, across different levels of experience and backgrounds. And the single most important factor that makes a team successful, it's not their talent, not their brilliance, not the amount of years they spend in the industry. What do you think it is? Mindset could be. The ability to work together, it's related to that. Not really. Energy could be, and we'll talk about energy. The MIT, the result, the compelling result, was that the most effective teams, the most successful teams, have a very strong sense of mission, a very high sense of mission. Because when someone finds meaning in what they're doing, when someone feels that they belong to something bigger than themselves, that skyrockets their performance. And this takes me to a little story from London in 1666. The Great Fire had destroyed most of the city, including St. Paul's Cathedral. And an architect was hired to rebuild the cathedral. And so 5 years into the reconstruction of the cathedral, the architect is walking on site, and he notices 3 bricklayers. And he sees that they're doing the exact same task, putting one brick on top of the other, but with a very different attitude. First one is slouch over, like grumpily doing the thing. Second one is a bit more composed. Third one was a happy camper. You know, the guy was singing and smiling and whistling and doing his thing. And so the architect walks over to the first one and says, "Good morning, sir. What are you working on today?" And the guy goes, "Well, I'm a bricklayer, and I'm putting one brick on top of the other, as you may see." And then he goes over to the second guy, same question. "Sir, what are you working on today?" And he goes, I'm building a wall." Walks over to the third guy and says, same question. "Sir, what are you working on today?" And the guy looks at him, swipes his forehead, looks into the sky and says, "I'm a cathedral builder, and I'm building a cathedral for the kingdom." Same tools, same task, same bricks, completely different sense of mission. And that's what having a strong sense of mission does. It lifts us beyond the task, the daily operations, and connects us to a sense of purpose. And a few months ago, when I had my first conversation with Richard and Bobby, and when I heard the passion in their voice, and when I saw the clarity in their vision, and when I could feel how genuinely they care about their entrepreneurs and the investors they are serving, and we have heard the entrepreneurs today talk about that, how they genuinely care, I thought, these guys are not just building a fund, they're building a cathedral. And that's why I immediately said, yes, I want to be in this event. And I'm sure many of you here are cathedral builders. Just let me give you a tip about the importance of how we describe what we do in our day-to-day. Because many times, the daily operations, the laying one brick on top of the other, because we have to do that, we forget about the mission and we get disconnected. So pay attention to the words you use to describe what you do. And talking about the words we use, oh, there we are. Talking about the words we use, this is a quiz for you. What are the 2 most powerful words according to research? What's that? We? Okay, and we need another one. It could be Yes and no, they're powerful. What else? We can, it could be. In fact, that's a good one because these two words go together. It's not we can, they go together. We always say them together. All of those are powerful, but the two most powerful words according to research are I am. Because whatever we say right after those two words is who we start to become. Why? Because every time you say I am, your subconscious mind turns on and pays attention because it's ready to execute. And so when we say I am overwhelmed, I am never going to make it, subconscious mind says, got it, boss, let's execute. And I know we all know this, right? We've all heard about the power of positive thinking and how it's better to think positive than think negative, yet study after study shows that we don't practice it. Do you know how many thoughts we have per day? Women, a lot more. That's a myth. I have no idea where that comes from. Well, science research shows that we have approximately 50,000 thoughts per day. Do you know what percentage of the thoughts are negative? Take a guess. 60%? Even worse. 80%. 80% of our thoughts are negative. Do you know what they are about? They're usually about ourselves. And so we basically walk around with this toxic self-talk and we don't really care. It's like, it's not that bad, right? It's not that bad. Well, it is bad. let me actually show you something. Because I don't know if you mind me taking a little break. Is it okay? No? Why not? Not good for me? No? How do you know? There's research. There's photos. We've all seen the horror photos, right? Well, I wish we had horror photos that showed what toxic self-talk does to our self-esteem, to our capacity to lead, and to our level of conviction. Then maybe we would decide that this crap is just as toxic as the other crap. And for anyone thinking, oh, okay, here we go with the yada yada of the positive thinking, let me just say something very clearly. Positive self-talk is not a fluffy, feel-good thing. It's a high-performance strategy. Let me prove it to you with a set of examples. Do we have tennis fans in the house? Raise your hands. Okay, quite a few. And even those who are not tennis fans, I'm sure you can recognize this too, right? Yeah, because they have dominated the tennis scene for, I think, over a decade or so. Well, at that time, when Rafa and Roger were dominating the scene, even the other Grand Slam players thought it's impossible to beat these guys. It's impossible. Until one day, out of the blue, a young guy came out and publicly said, I'm gonna beat them. And everyone thought, who does he think he is? He's so arrogant. I mean, look at him. He's barely starting. Nobody knows his name. Comes from a country with no tradition in tennis. Who does he think he is? Do you have any idea of who it might be? This is young Novak Djokovic. And he happened to not only beat them, but win more Grand Slams than them. And so, was it arrogance? No, it was conviction. It was a 10 out of 10 conviction, the same level of conviction that an entrepreneur needs when he's stepping into an industry that is being dominated by giants. Because tennis on its own is not enough, as well as having a brilliant business idea is not enough, right? We need that rock-solid conviction when we're stepping into a new place. And this takes a lot of mental strength, especially when things start going wrong, when obstacles appear. Yet one single sentence that you say, repeated with enough intention, can change results, and change can happen very, very fast. I was once coaching one of the best athletes in his sport, and he came to see me because he was not going through a great time. And he said, his exact words were, Florencia, I don't know what's wrong with me, but it's been weeks that I've been playing horrible. I feel my talent is gone. My magic has disappeared. And in 3 days, we have the final game of the Queen's Cup. The Queen's Cup was called like that because the Queen of England handed the trophy to the winner. And so I tell him, well, if we only have 3 days, we're only going to focus on one thing. And I tell him, all those things that you're telling yourself, my magic is gone, my talent has disappeared, A, they're probably not true. B, they're robbing you of the thing you need the most to perform at your best. And he goes, well, yeah, but I can't help it. I feel like I have a broken record in my head that's going, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? I mean, I'm playing wrong. And this thing keeps going, what's wrong with you? Have you ever had that experience of having the nagging thought that will not leave you alone? Well, then pay attention. And so I told him, well, if you have a broken record, it's time to put a new record on. And this is how we're going to do it. I want you to pick a phrase that is so short that you can repeat by heart and is so empowering that by only reading it, you already feel better and more confident. And he said, okay, fine. And so he chose a phrase, 4 words, I believe in me. And I told him, perfect. Now what you're going to do tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up and you're going to put your new record on. And I want you to repeat this phrase from the moment you wake up till the moment you go to bed. So you're brushing your teeth and you're thinking, I believe in me, and you're eating your meals and you're thinking, I believe in me, and you're going to practice and you're repeating that all the time. I kept sending him messages to remind him. And he did. He did it for 3 days. Well, game day finally came, and you could feel the tension in that stadium. The stadium was packed. The cameras were flashing. The guy is on the spotlight. The ESPN commentator saying things like, well, today's a day that the captain needs to show up. And so the game begins, and he starts playing very well, but his opponents are also playing very well. And so the game is tied. And when there was 1 minute left for this game to come to a close, the guy grabs the ball at the far end of the field, and he starts dribbling through his opponents, one by one after the other. And within 10 seconds of the game coming to a close, shoots the ball, scores, and they win the championship. And here comes the best part of the story. When he went to receive the cup from the queen herself, he says, Florencia, do you want to know how I scored that goal? I said, yes. And he said, I was not thinking about scoring. I was not thinking about my opponents. The only thing I was thinking about the moment I grabbed the ball was, I believe in me. I believe in me. And then he showed me a photo of his hand, and he had written there, creo en mí, which in Spanish means I believe in me. And then he said, it has almost been erased from my hand, but will never be erased from my heart. Change can happen fast. Question for you, why do you think that such a simple strategy, what happened here, produced such results? What happened? What happened with this guy who was completely stuck 3 days before and suddenly goes back to playing at his full and wins the tournament? Actually, discuss with the person sitting next to you. What exactly do you think happened here beyond wishful thinking or magical things? What actually happened? Go ahead. Then I'll reveal the answer from science. Okay, let me tell you what actually happened. Let's see if you got close to the answer. Because it was not just a motivational talk that I gave him. It was brain science. This is how our brain works. Every time we have a thought, whether it's positive or negative, that thought creates an image, a mental image in our brain. Our brain does not think in words, thinks in images. And those images that are imprinted in the brain immediately turn into actions. They determine our actions. And so this is how a thought becomes a thing. A thought becomes an action. And so let's say, for example, if you had to give a public presentation and you hate public speaking, but you have to do it because of your job, whatever. And you start thinking, oh my gosh, This makes me so nervous. I'm gonna forget my lines. If I do a joke, nobody will laugh. Guess what happens? Your brain goes, okay, image, image, image. And now let's turn it into action. And so you go, you do your thing, you forget your lines. You get extremely nervous. You make a joke, nobody laughs. And so that action in turn reinforces your thought. See, I knew I could not do this. Well, it all changes the moment we realize we get to pick our thoughts. And we get to pick the ones that are empowering if we want to. Now, back to the Queen's Cup story. I know, and I guess you might agree with me, that no one becomes a champion on his own, right? And when I saw the dynamics in that team 3 days before that big game, well, how do I put it? It was one hot mess. The players were blaming one another. They were secretly blaming the coach. The coach was criticizing the players. The physical therapists were talking badly about the players. And so I thought, okay, no, we need to do something. And I gathered them all, players, coaches, physical therapists, staff, in one room. And they're all doing their thing, you know, nobody's really paying any attention. And so I stand in the middle of the room and I say, guys, do you want to double your chances of winning this tournament? Now I had their attention. And then I shared with them a study performed on NBA teams. Researchers wanted to know if there was any special trait that was present in the teams that made it to the final realms of the tournament that was not there with the ones who were left behind. And so they studied all the teams all the way from preseason to the playoffs. And indeed, they found a pattern. They found there was one thing that could predict success. Any guesses of what that was? Convict. That's the easy answer. It's actually a pretty surprising thing. The thing that could predict success was that winning teams were the ones with the highest amount of high fives. High fives, pats in the back, fist bumps, general gestures of encouragement. And you might be thinking, is it that important? I mean, we're talking about a very competitive sport. Yes, it is that important, because what they discovered is that each one of those gestures carries a message, transfers energy, builds partnership, boosts confidence, and it carries the single most important message that any team member could ever receive. And that message is, I believe in you. And when a team goes from blaming and complaining and criticizing, and they shift to the I believe in you and you believe in me energy, that team becomes unstoppable. And I'm sure that many of you here who have your teams can agree with this, right? It becomes unstoppable. In fact, we have a beautiful example right here. We have an example here of this energy, of how entrepreneurs not only need the conviction and the good energy within their own execution teams. When IDC comes along and tells an entrepreneur, hey, we believe in you. We believe in you not only because of your idea, but because of who you are, the person behind the idea. And when you, as an investor, you tell IDC, hey, I believe in you. I believe in you and your ability to choose and support the right projects. I believe in you because of your track record. I believe in you because of your sense of mission. We build this unstoppable energy. And that is what you need to win a Grand Slam, whether the Grand Slam is a US Open or it is taking a company from startup to public. And that's why an event like this is so meaningful. So congratulations to everyone who carved out time of your very busy schedules to attend here today and to reinforce this unstoppable energy. Now let's go a step deeper, and please, for a moment, let go of anything that you have in your hands, and for a moment, close your eyes. Take a big breath in and out. And I want you, for a moment, to connect with the first person that comes to your mind when I ask you, who believed in you? who believed in you, who believes in you. It could be a mentor, family member, colleague. It could be something recent or that happened a long time ago. And when you have the person in your mind, think about what did this person do or say to make you feel that they believed in you. And if you're feeling any emotion, it means you're doing this the right way. And now I want you to imagine that this person is sitting right across from you. And they're looking at you in the eyes, and they're smiling. And they're saying, hey, I'm so proud of you. People who believe in us give us wings to fly. People who believe in us ignite our inner fire, even in those moments when we feel our spark is gone. The great news is that we get to be that person for someone else. Take a big breath in. And if you're still feeling emotional, let me quickly remind you that whatever you learn through emotions stays in your heart forever and in your mind, in your long-term memory. So we welcome emotions in this room. And just in case we need to land this into our business life, and why does this apply to anything that what we're saying today? Because I know that many of these things I'm talking about, they are usually called the soft skills, which is an elegant way of saying the not so important stuff. Yet study after study shows that these are the things that make a difference, even in revenue. This is a very interesting study from Harvard Business Review where they showed that a 1% increase in emotional climate creates a 2% increase in revenue. Not so soft, not so useless. And if there's one thing that makes the emotional climate grow and become better, is fostering this I believe in you culture. All right, so pillar number 1, that was a long one because I think it's the most important one, 10 out of 10 conviction. Let's go on to pillar number 2. And just so you know, I have no idea because the watch is doing its own thing. So I have no idea how we're doing. Pillar number 2 is dreaming big enough. And let's highlight the word enough. What if I told you that many of you sitting in this room today might not be dreaming big enough? As you know, I've coached some of the best athletes in the planet, talented, disciplined, with grit. Yet when you talk to them in private, they're scared of dreaming big enough. I've coached celebrities, the people we see in movies, and you think they have it all, fame, fortune, the good looks. You talk to them in private, they're scared of dreaming big enough. For the past 5 years, I've been working with entrepreneurs, same thing. And it's not just me noticing it. A while ago, I was having a conversation. I don't know if you know this guy, and if you don't, go find him online. He's amazing, brilliant. Naveen Jain. He was born and raised in India. He became a self-made billionaire and founder of many successful companies. And he said, Florencia, whenever I speak with high-end entrepreneurs and I spend a lot of time with them, I see that most of them are not dreaming big enough. I see that most businesses have a clear business plan, but they don't have a business dream. And then he said something that stuck with me. He said, success can become a comfort zone. I said, what do you mean? And he said, many times we stop dreaming big enough because we are already doing well. And that's a trap. And that hit home for me because of the story I'm going to share now. 3 years ago, only 3 years ago, I was having a conversation with my son, and we were talking about the power of big dreams. And so he asked me, so Mom, what's your next big dream? And I proudly answered, well, I'm working on a new book. And he goes, another book? And I'm like slightly annoyed, but I'm trying to keep a composed face. And I go, yes, honey, writing a book, making it a bestseller, it's kind of a task, He goes, Mom, You've been doing that forever. You've written a bunch of books, and you always say that dreams are supposed to be scary and exciting. Nothing scary about that. So I try again, and I say, well, I'm also working on growing our team this year, and expanding our team. And he goes, boring, Mom, tell me something exciting. And so I look at him and I say, well, my boring job pays for vacations, takes you everywhere. And, you want something exciting? It's almost 9 p.m. and you haven't showered. So go take a shower and it's time to go to bed. And that night, as I went to bed, I had a wake-up call. It dawned on me. He was right. I was teaching people how to go for big, bold dreams, and it had been a long time since I had pursued one myself. And I realized I was not the same Florencia I was at the beginning of my journey. At the beginning of my journey as an entrepreneur, I was a go-getter. I was a risk taker. I was the girl knocking on every door and getting 100 no's and making mistakes and getting up again. But then at one point, when my books became well-known or my name began to grow, suddenly I started changing. I had a lot more eyeballs on me, my team, my clients, my followers, my editors, and without even realizing it, I went from playing to win to playing not to lose. And there's a huge difference in this game. What does playing not to lose look like, at least for me? Well, playing not to lose looked like me avoiding taking risks. By avoiding taking risks, I was avoiding making mistakes. And by avoiding making mistakes, I was avoiding feeling and looking like a dumb boss. And by avoiding feeling dumb, I was feeling safe. Perfect logic, right? With a tiny detail. I stopped growing. And if any of this is resonating with you right now, I want you to know that each one of us right here has a next level, even if we're not aware of it. I knew I had a next level. In fact, I knew I had a dream inside of me that I did not even dare say out loud because I was so afraid that maybe I would fail, and now everyone was looking at me. The thing is that sometimes we don't even know what that next level looks like. To give you an example of how bad this can be, I was, in another occasion, coaching another very talented sports athlete. And he came to me and he said, Florencia, it's been 2 long years since I've won a Grand Slam. And so we're having our conversation and I asked him, well, what's your dream now? And he says, well, I just want to go back to playing at my level. I just want to be competitive again. And I say, that's all? Come on, dream bigger. And he goes, well, I would like to win a Grand Slam. And I say, well, when would you like that to happen? And he says, well, if it happens within this year, I'd be super happy. And I say, what's the fastest that you can allow yourself to dream about? And he says, well, you know what? The US Open is coming in 5 weeks. And that would be phenomenal. And so I look at him in the eye and I say, do you truly allow yourself to dream about winning the US Open in 5 weeks? And he says, yeah, heck yeah. Well, what do you think happened 5 weeks later? Did he win, yes or no? Yes. Now here's the thing. Did his level of talent in his sport change in those 5 weeks, yes or no? No. Did his competitors suddenly vanish into thin air, yes or no? No. He didn't change his gear, he didn't change his training, he didn't change his nutrition. The only thing that changed is that he set himself to achieve a big, bold dream in a short time frame. And now, it's your turn. And I'm going to ask you in a moment to write a powerful one-liner of what's your next big goal, your next big dream. And I ask you to please write it down because we're going to work with it. You don't have to share this with anyone. It's for yourself. And before you write it down, I want to invite you to think about 2 things. Number 1 is, can I make it bigger? Bigger meaning bigger in size. It can be bigger if you have a revenue number in your head, it could be bigger. If you told me, I want to write a book, I'd tell you, write a bestseller. And the other way you can make a dream bigger is shortening the time frame. Did you know that the time we give ourselves to do something is usually the time it takes us to do it? This corresponds to Parkinson's law that says that a problem expands to the time we give it. Well, goals are the same. So take a moment and write down your next big, bold dream, considering, can I make it bigger? Can I make it faster? Okay, we're done? Yes, we're done. And we're ready to move into our next pillar. So we have 10 out of 10 conviction, pillar number 1, dreaming big enough. Big enough means, you guys, especially those who are doing well, every now and then stop and look and ask yourselves, have we stopped dreaming big enough? Are we playing not to lose, or are we playing to win? And then we dive into our third pillar. And our third pillar is taking bold action. Now, here comes a time when we go from idea, from dreaming about something, to doing it, to implementing it. And in this step is when we're face to face with the possibility of failing. What if it doesn't work? And so the mere thought about something not working out, what if I fail? What if it doesn't work? Triggers anxiety, triggers self-doubt, triggers fear. And this is when we need to become masters of our emotions, when we're about to take action. And I know emotional mastery is a huge topic. I've been university professor in the coaching, what's the name? Yeah, coaching degree, in the master's degree, there we go, in coaching. And my whole class was called Emotional Mastery, and it lasted 6 entire weeks. But today I want to bring you the one tool, the one emotional mastery tool that can shift your emotions in just a few minutes and can make you go from feeling, I don't know about this, a little dubious or simply anxious or scared, to feeling empowered and ready and confident. And I discovered the power of this tool 14, 15 years ago when I was facing the biggest challenge in my professional life. I had just been signed by Sony Music as their first ever, went too fast, as their first ever motivational speaker. So, the usual lineup of Sony Music was Shakira and Ricky Martin and the unknown speaker. And they decided that to test the waters, to see how it went, and to see if we were ready to launch a tour, we would start in the Myo Theater. And those who are from Argentina know what this means, and those who don't, well, this is an iconic theater. It's an iconic theater where, back in the day, the best artists, the best ballet dancers danced, and the best singers sang, and here we were. And this was a dream come true for me as a speaker, an absolute dream come true. And about a month before the event, we're there in the theater, me, my mother, and our small team, and we were doing all the, the lights checking and sound checking and sort of like a technical rehearsal. And so I was standing there in the middle of the theater. Of course, the room was empty, and I'm doing my thing. I'm closing my eyes, and I'm visualizing the place being filled with people. And in the middle of my thing, in walks a guy, and we got introduced, and they told me he has been managing this theater for 40 years. And so he walks over me, and this is funny because this is the exact moment that this conversation took place. And so he approaches me and he says, "Nice to meet you. I don't think I've heard about you before. What kind of artist are you? Are you a singer?" And I go, "No." "Are you a musician?" No. "Actress?" "No." "Dancer?" And I go, "Well, after a few gin tonics, I have my moves." I'm trying to make him laugh. The guy is not even smiling. He looks at me and says, "What kind of artist are you?" And I say, "We are motivational speakers." And he looked at me like I had just landed from Mars. And he goes, "You are what?" "Motivational speakers. So we motivate people. We talk and we motivate people to go for their dreams." And he goes, "And people will pay to hear you speak in this theater?" And I go, Yeah, with a fake smile and a fake sense of confidence. And right when he was about to leave the room, he turns around and he says, I've been managing this theater for 40 years and I have never seen someone come here and pay to watch someone speak. Good luck. And the moment he left the room, I felt like a huge garbage truck full of self-doubts had just been dumped over my head. I was dripping all over me. And the next 2 weeks, I obsessed around the idea, what if this is a mistake? What if no one buys a ticket? This guy knows what he's talking about. We're not artists. What the heck are we doing here? Nobody will buy a ticket. Or worse, what if just friends and family buy a ticket? How embarrassing will that be? And so, yeah, the next 2 weeks were one long proof of what emotions can do to you if you don't take control of them. I'm talking about extreme anxiety, extreme self-doubt, about tossing and turning in bed all night, about snapping at my children for no reason, that kind of anxiety, you know. And so when it was 10 days before the event, no tickets had been sold. And so I say, you know, let's call this a day. And I'm about to call Sony Music and tell them to cancel this ridiculous idea off. And when I was about to do that, I suddenly remembered a mantra. Do you know what a mantra is? Yeah, a repetition of a sentence, right? And this was a very powerful mantra that was taught to me by my first mentor, Jack Canfield. And he said, Florencia, this is the mantra that you need to use whenever you're about to take action, but fear kicks in. And this mantra has been so powerful in my life that today we have the words of this mantra written in huge letters across our office. And if I ever got a tattoo, this is exactly what I would get. And so, by the way, oh, I didn't show you a photo, sorry. That was it, the conversation. Would you like to learn the mantra? Hold on, there we go. All right, this is how we're going to do this. I want you to take a look at that goal you wrote. And if you didn't write it, you need to think about it right now. This next big goal, this next big dream. And I also want to right now connect you for a moment with any uncomfortable emotion or thought that arises when you look at that goal. It might be a little bit of uneasiness. It might be, I'm not sure this will happen. It might be fear, whatever it is. By the way, if you're not feeling any of that, you might be dreaming too small, my friend. So connect with that for a moment. And what we're going to do, I'm going to play some music. And I need your collaboration here because I'm very bad at doing ohms. So we're going to do it together. We're going to do 3 ohms. And then we're going to repeat this ancestral mantra. And what I want you to do is to see if you feel the shift in your energy towards your goal. Close your eyes. If you want to take it deeper, you might even do the thumb and index thing. Take a big breath in and out. The next one, we're going to start chanting the ohms, and then we're going to repeat the mantra a few times until we feel the energy shifting. Big breath in. One more time. One more time, and then we're going to repeat the mantra. Here we go. Just follow my words. Oh, what the heck? Go for it anyway. Stand up. Please stand up. Please stand up. Please stand up. Come on, we've been sitting all morning. Come on. I want you to think about your goal. Now, take your hands off your pockets, you guys. We're going to move. Think about your goal. Have it in mind. And we're going to say this like we mean it. Let's turn the volume of the music up. We're going to imagine we have an energy ball in our hands. We're going to pump the ball from the floor to the sky while we repeat this, and we think about our next big, bold dream. Let's go. Oh, what the heck, go for it anyway. Oh, what the heck, go for it, boss! Oh, what the heck, go for it anyway. Say it like you mean it. What the heck, go for it any freestyle. Oh, what the heck, go for it anyway. 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 You can say it. Take a seat. So I know this was not an ancestral mantra, but I cannot tell you how many times we use it, and it is true. It is written across all our office because I've used it multiple times. So opening night finally came. And here's the fun thing about how we used to do things back in the day when we did not have the apps to, buy a ticket on the spot. People would buy it on the spot in the place, which means for us, we had no idea how many people we would have in the room. And so we were there with my mother, and we were standing behind the red velvety curtain, and I was trying to peep, and they were telling me not to do that. And so I started listening to some voices in the room, and I think, well, someone came. It might be just friends and family, but what the heck? Let's go do it anyway. And the moment the red velvety curtain rose, our jaws dropped. Because this is what we had. Full house, sold out tickets, people lining up on the sidelines. And that night, we received the longest and loudest standing ovation we could have ever dreamed of. And my lesson was, it is okay to feel emotions like fear and anxiety and a little bit of self-doubt when you're about to take bold action. It is okay and it is normal. What it's not okay is to allow those emotions to make your decisions. And with that, we move on to our final pillar today, which is being decisive. Be decisive. What do I mean by this? Well, let me bring someone on stage to explain it to you. Now, I don't care what you think about him on a personal level. I don't care if you agree with his political stance or not, because one thing is undeniable. The guy knows how to make big dreams happen, right? Reinventing the car industry. He's planning on turning Mars into an Earth-like planet. He's inventing brain chips, so he knows how to make it happen. By the way, who here has read his Walter Isaacson's biography on Elon Musk? Raise your hand. Okay, so those of you who read it might remember the story of the very special Christmas Eve when Elon had just acquired Twitter and they had a big problem with server farms, right? They had 3 server farms and Elon decided that one of them had to go. And his engineers were not very happy about it. And they said, okay, fine, Elon, if that's your decision, we're going to do that, but we just need to tell you this will take 6 months. And so in the meeting, he looks at them and says, I think we can do it in 6 weeks. And they go, no, that's literally impossible. And by the end of the meeting, he says, okay, fine, I think you can actually make it in 6 days. Well, the day after this meeting, Elon is on a plane going back to Austin, Texas to spend Christmas time with the family. And he's in the airplane with 2 young cousins who are engineers. And one of the young cousins jokingly says, hey, Elon, what if we go and take out the server farm ourselves? Elon looks at him, looks at the pilot, and says, we're making a U-turn. We're going to the server farm. We're going to Sacramento. They land there on Christmas Eve. They go and rent a U-Haul truck, the one we use to move a couch? Okay, that one. They walk into the facility, and as they're walking in, one of them says, we're not going to be able to do this. Why not? Well, because the floors are elevated and the cables are down there. We need very special machinery to get down there. And so Elon looks at his bodyguard and says, do you happen to have a pocket knife? And the bodyguard goes, mm-hmm. hands the pocket knife, Elon sticks it below the panel, lifts the thing off, crawls underneath, and with a giant pair of scissors he bought at Home Depot, starts cutting off the cables, loading the U-Haul truck, and they're gone. He decided to make a 6-month thing into a 24 hours thing. And you might think, well, yeah, but it was not the best decision. Arguably, okay, it might be. But he said something that stuck with me. He said, I know that I need to be able to make fast decisions, and so I also know that 20% of them might not be perfect. And I'm okay with that, because I'd rather have speed and conviction than knowing that 100% of my decisions will be right. And that's what decisiveness means. And you might be looking at this and thinking, well, good for Elon, but I'm not Elon Musk. You don't need to be. But if you want to be successful in your projects, if you want to make your dreams happen faster, you need to be decisive. The CEO Genome Project, a project where they followed around 17,000 top C executives for 10 long years, came to a powerful conclusion. The best ones, the most successful ones, were not the most brilliant, the most intelligent, the most talented. It was the ones who were able to decide fast, earlier, with more conviction. Question for you. What would you say kills decisiveness? Or what's the opposite of decisiveness, of being decisive, of making decisions? What's the opposite? Doubt. Yeah. Indecision. That was an easy one. Also known as overthinking. Now, I'm not saying that being decisive is being ruthless or not thinking about things. Of course you need analysis. Of course you need very careful analysis. But we have all been here in the game long enough to know the difference between analyzing something, which is very important, and overthinking it. We all know when we're stuck in the loop of the what ifs, right? Well, what if this is not the good time? What if the market changes? What if I'm making a mistake? What if I disappoint people with this move? Indecision comes from the fear of making mistakes. And the other thing about indecision is that it is a silent killer, because we usually are not aware of it. And do you know where it likes to hide, this silent killer? It loves hiding behind our busy schedule. Many times we think we're being decisive. We think we're making decisions because we're very busy. And so we think we're moving the ball forward because we're busy all day doing a lot of things. But what if the busy schedule was our way of procrastinating, making the big decisions that we need to do to move the ball forward? What if that was the case? That's exactly what happened to me. For 10 years, I had the dream of launching a company and a brand for English-speaking markets. 10 years. Yet I was so scared. But I would never say I'm scared. I would say, I am busy. Look at my schedule. I already run a company in Argentina. I have a team. I have 2 wonderful children who I raise. I have no time. Well, after my son confronted me and said, you're talking about something that you're not doing, I had a long night, a long night to myself. And as I was sitting there in bed, I realized I keep repeating I have no time. What if I take a little bit of my own medicine and practice what I used to tell my clients who said, I have no time to do? And so what I did was a brutally honest self-audit of my time. And what that looks like is you take one entire week, Monday to Friday, and you write down every single thing that you're doing on your working hours. Well, I did that. And by Friday, how do I put it? I was a little shocked. Because yes, of course, I was busy. But I was very far. I don't know if you're familiar with the book, The 4-Hour Workweek, by my colleague Tim Ferriss. Well, there he says you need to spend 80% of your time in the 20% of things that bring you most results. I was very far away from that. I was busy. I was doing a lot of things. I was not like lying on the couch watching Netflix, eating ice cream. I was falling into productive procrastination, keeping myself busy, staying busy deep inside to avoid making the decisions that I knew I need to make if I wanted to go to the next level. And when I realized this, I said, enough is enough. And I said, I'm going to go for this. And the moment I decided I would go for it, I went to look for the one person who had inspired me the most to take this step. Any guesses? But first, let me ask you something, because maybe something of what I've said is resonating with you. Maybe you're right now thinking, am I productively procrastinating? Might it be that I'm also playing not to lose and that I am hiding behind my busy schedule? If that is the case, you can take the following question home and dwell on it. How many big decisions have you made in the last 3 months? And if the answer is not sure, you might want to do a brutally honest self-audit of your time. And by the end of it, ask yourself, do I really lack time, or am I lacking decisiveness? Am I lacking focus? So I make my decision, and I go and pick up the one person who inspired me the most. I went to pick up my son from school, and I tell him, buddy, we're going to the beach. We're going to have a date because I need to share something with you. And he goes, what's that? And I say, I have a big, scary dream to share with you. And he's like, another book? I say, no, this is scary. What is that? I'm going to launch a business and a brand for English-speaking countries. And he says, oh, well, why is that scary? And I say, because I'm starting from zero. I have nothing. I have no team, I have no office, I have no products, I have no book, and I have no guarantee that this will work. He looks at me and he goes, way to go, mama. Way to go. Vamos, mamá, in Argentino. And the second decision I made was, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it fast. It had been enough thinking. I'm going to do it fast because I know the time we give ourselves to do something is usually the time it takes us to do it. And so I started making fast moves. We rented our first office. Look at how glamorous and beautiful. It's so depressing. But within a few days, it started looking better. I decided to build a team, but not any team. I decided to invest almost all my personal savings into hiring an A-level team. We started pushing out products like crazy. We hit the ground running. I started going to every single stage where I knew I could raise brand awareness in Europe, in the Middle East, in the US. And within 10 months, this company was just as big as the one I had built over a decade in South America, and has now tripled its size, both in revenue and in impact. It only took me 10 years of overthinking it and a 10-year-old kid to open my eyes. So Alex Hormozi has a phrase that to me is very powerful. He says, the heaviest things in life are not iron or gold, but the weight of our unmade decisions. And I agree with him. I agree with him. So be decisive. Be decisive. Think about your next big dream for a moment. And imagine for a moment that you're the pilot of the plane. And in the back of that plane is your family sitting. And you have a short runway ahead of you because there's a big fat line of trees in the end. Would you take it slowly, overthinking every move? Or would you hit that pedal and make that thing fly as fast as you can? Because when the runway is short, there is no time for overthinking. There's no time for self-doubt. That's when you trust your intuition. That's when you trust your preparation. That's when you remind yourself that you were not born to taxi on the runway. You were made to fly. And all these things that we talked about today are not so much about achieving more. They're about becoming more. Becoming more. Because in business and in life, winning is not so much about achieving things. Winning is about who we become in the process of achieving them. Winning is about tapping into our inner power that gets ignited when we have a new dream, a new goal, and when we start taking action, even if we don't feel 100% ready. Winning is about feeling alive, feeling so alive that you want to jump out of bed every morning to start your day. Winning is about remembering who we are and imagining who we may become. Winning is about listening to that inner voice that says, I am not going to settle for less than what I'm meant to be. Because if I am still alive, I am here to be growing. And we all have the inner power that can make any dream come true. And when the runway is short and the trees are tall, we don't slow down. We go full throttle. We press that pedal and we make that thing fly as fast as we can. And it all starts with the decision to go for it. And we can make that decision. Should we say this all together, like in the beginning? We can make that decision here, now, and in this moment. It has been my absolute pleasure to spend the morning with you, and I sincerely hope that our time together has contributed one brick to the building of your cathedral. Thank you very much.